What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we'll be talking about Alchemy and ways to maybe fix the format as a whole. I know it's kind of one of those things that not many people really like the format as a whole, but I do think it's the pathway on how to actually physically get yourself into the format, especially if you're a little bit more on the budget side or free-to-play side, or even if you pay money, it's just, another incentive of having to spend more money to get into the format. But with the release of new CAPENNA and some of the things they've kind of done to kind of promote the actual new cards, I do think these are definitely steps in the right direction, and I kind of want to dive into them and also think about other ways to incentivize players to actually probably invest a little bit more into the format if they want to consider playing it. But with that being said, let's just dive into the client, kind of go over things they've done and kind of talk about it. All right, so the first thing that they did that was actually kind of a good thing, and I feel like they do this here and there, I feel like with the recent Alchemy releases, but they do this event that you can kind of dive into and play these for free, and you can dive in and get some wins playing cards from the Alchemy set. And this time around, they actually made precons, which is definitely pretty cool. Just from even just hitting join, I believe this event, you were able to get 1,000 XP mastery just for joining the event. And then you can dabble into these precon decks that are definitely pretty cool. And I think this is definitely one of those ways to incentivize people who normally wouldn't want to pick up a format and participate in the event if they have to invest cards first and foremost before they actually even try it out. I think letting players try the cards and kind of seeing how they do is definitely pretty cool. And on top of it, if you want to go ahead after the event is over and want to maybe look about building these decks, they actually added the ability to actually add these decks into your deck library, which is definitely pretty awesome. And with there also being 4 different decks, it's definitely pretty cool that you're able to kind of, pick and choose and kind of see each one. And you can play this as much as you want until the event ends. I think at the time of this recording, this event's actually going to be over. But I did post this on the community thing, so hopefully you got to dabble in and kind of play and get your 3 free packs and 1,000 mastery XP, which is definitely pretty cool. But I think, adding some sort of precon like that's just made for Alchemy is definitely would be a good direction to kind of incentivize players to also play. I'm not saying replace the standard precon decks that they always release every year, but I would say you kind of split the precon decks, have some for standard, have some for Alchemy, and kind of allowing players to pick and choose. Maybe they want to dabble a little bit in Alchemy today and then dabble in standard tomorrow. Kind of giving players pathways to kind of play other formats is definitely one of those things, and precon decks are definitely a way to incentivize players without actually having to spend additional money. The other thing to note about the precon decks that I'll kind of dive into real quick before we move on to the next thing is that they actually fully fledged out the decks in a pretty good way of playing rares, mythics, and things like that. They didn't just give you, one mythic, one rare. They actually give you multiple copies of various mythics and rares in the deck. So it's definitely kind of one of those things that feels a little bit of a step up from the previous precons that they've done before, where you kind of only get like one-offs of everything, and then, you get like maybe the one mythic. This definitely, feels like a deck that is built to kind of, compete in an Alchemy format. Is this deck going to be the best in the format? No, but it definitely gets you started in a format, especially if you want to dive a little bit deeper into it. And, getting a deck that's a little bit more full-fledged like this is definitely a good step. And I think that's, like, the next thing they should do is kind of bulk up the precons they give you. I know they don't want to give away cards for free, but I do think if you kind of give players options of, maybe the decks aren't the greatest, but they play around certain mechanics, and they get incentivized players to play other cards of the mechanics, that is definitely a good step in the right direction. Now, the last thing I kind of want to dive on before I go into my next subject is the actual, idea of having these events that are specifically for precon decks, and you play against other precon decks in that manner. I think the one thing that Arena doesn't really do a whole bunch is do these events in a way that allows players to play these pre-constructed decks against other pre-constructed decks. This is definitely one of those things that I think they should do more of in the game, just because if you're a newer player, you don't have a lot of cards, and being able to explore and play other precon decks to kind of do various mechanics and things like that is definitely very good in that sense. I feel like they should do it for if they did this for every single release on Arena, I feel like that'd be pretty good. If they did one for just regular Streets of New Capenna, that'd be pretty sweet. If they did one for the D&D Commander set that's coming in for Alchemy, I feel like they definitely should do these precon decks to kind of focus around that and play with those new cards, because that will then, in theory, incentivize players to maybe craft those cards, maybe dabble a little bit more deeper into these events. And it's definitely a step in the right direction to incentivize players to play other formats if you kind of give them something to kind of try it out before they really invest into that that particular thing. Now, the next thing that I actually would suggest, and possibly could be another decent idea to get players to play another format without actually physically having to invest a whole bunch into that format, would be to kind of make a jump in format kind of a thing, which is kind of like this event that they have in Arena that's kind of like oriented towards newer players who don't really have big collections, where you take two piles of cards, combine them together, and you have a deck. If they kind of did this kind of event that is for Alchemy as well, on top of, you know, the regular cards that you have here, I definitely could see that being another way to kind of incentivize players to actually play the event. I know I'm blocking the actual thing, but this event only costs 200 gems or 1,000 gold. And it's definitely kind of one of those things, like I said, you know, playing these more limited formats where there's not as much pressure to, you know, have the best deck or have the greatest cards, and kind of like just playing for fun in the sense of you're just trying to kind of get that win, to kind of get that reward, and kind of like try out some things to kind of see how cards play against each other. I think is another great way. I don't, you know, like I said, they don't have to do it for everything, but if they had a jump in that was regular standard and they had a jump in that was for Alchemy, it's definitely a decent another direction for a good push into having players play another format on top of the regular one. Now, this is kind of like another interesting one, but you know, the other thing why I feel like the game feels not really other format friendly is a lot of what is pushed in the game, especially with the battle passes, is pushed towards the latest and greatest set of standard. So like you look at the battle pass, I'm currently level 35, about halfway through I believe the battle pass for the season. I've kind of like, you know, played here and there more recently, but the thing is with this is like, you know, everything you're getting rewarded here is the latest and greatest of New CAPENNA. You're not getting rewarded for any older formats outside of standard. You're not getting any Alchemy rewards. Granted, the Alchemy set has come out after the fact of this, but I would see, like, you know, if there was a way to get a battle pass, maybe if there was one to get one, you know, maybe like when the Alchemy set comes out, you can then instead buy the Alchemy version of the battle pass. I don't really know, or if there was a way to kind of like choose your pack, like now that the New CAPENNA Alchemy cards are out, can I now redeem this? Can I get one or the other for, you know, New CAPENNA Alchemy packs? I'm not really sure. It's definitely one of those things I feel like, you know, you're not incentivized to kind of play in another format because you're just giving cards of, you know, standard. You're not giving cards of another format in that regard. And I get it. I mean, like, you know, standard is kind of what the game was built around, and these other formats have been kind of added on top of that over time. Like historic is just really an answer for all the cards from older formats that are older sets that have rotated out from regular standard, and that was kind of how that started. And then they added Alchemy, which is now a whole additional format on top of standard that involves standard cards and then Alchemy cards and things like that. But like I said, you're not really incentivized to really place any sort of other format because of the battle pass. And if they actually added avenues to kind of get other, you know, packs or cards from Alchemy, from historic, or from Pioneer or Explorer, I should say, you know, that would definitely be another path to kind of incentivize you to play something else other than standard. So that's definitely another area. And I do think I've kind of talked about this, but you know, there's only 7 pages of the battle pass, and we have a whole summer, and there's not a release until September. So it's kind of one of those weird things if you're not, you know, familiar usually how long, you know, when there's longer breaks in between sets, they typically give you more, you know, things to get on the battle pass. But it's kind of weird that they only did 7 pages, so that in my mind, I'm thinking that there's going to be something come with the new D&D Commander set that's going to be releasing in the summer, and I think we're going to get a battle pass specifically for that. So in a weird way, I feel like that battle pass will kind of like answer what I'm talking about. And I do think, you know, if they do this in the future where they release Alchemy specific sets, I do think, you know, introducing a battle pass alongside the Alchemy, you know, set, where the D&D Commander set is going to be 250 cards, so it's like literally a whole set. I do think that's another good way to incentivize players to then buy the battle pass, you know, dabble in it for Alchemy cards, and then kind of build their collection that way. Is definitely pretty awesome. Another thing, as you see here, they actually, with this release of New CAPENNA Alchemy, they did also a draft for it, which also incentivizes players to kind of get Alchemy packs on top of this. And I do think, like I said, diversifying the pack rewards that you get, because at this point, if you've been playing a lot of New CAPENNA or just kind of gotten a lot of packs of New CAPENNA, at this point, your collection for New CAPENNA is probably almost maxed out. I think I'm in the high 90s% for overall collection of New CAPENNA, and I don't really get any new rares. I really only am looking out for the mythics, and I haven't invested in the mythic only packs, but allowing me to kind of get other rewards than, like I said before, like with the Bet Mastery Pass. But I can now play this Premier Draft, and I can get now Alchemy packs instead of regular New CAPENNA packs, and you know, adding the Alchemy cards into this is definitely another good bonus. And I do think like changing up, you know, methods to get these cards, you know, in other ways without actually having to really, you know, dive into a constructed format is definitely very good. And, you know, if you're a pretty good drafter or play limited, I definitely think getting 6 wins and getting, or 7 wins and getting 6 packs and a whole bunch of gems, which pays for another draft, and you can do it all over again, is definitely pretty cool. I even think with like a quick draft, you know, rotating that more often, including Alchemy drafting in that, would definitely be pretty awesome. Like maybe you go from like 1 standard and then 1 Alchemy, then back to standard, then back to Alchemy kind of thing, is definitely another good way. But this is the first dabble. I think this event this premier draft only lasts through the weekend, if I'm not mistaken. It doesn't have a timer on it currently, but definitely another great way to incentivize players to, you know, play with the new cards in a little more limited manner instead of just diving directly into a whole meta that's already developed in that sense, and trying to play with new cards when people are already playing with decks that have been established in that particular format is definitely another good alternative. But at the end of the day, I know this has kind of been more of a ranty video, kind of talking about some points, but like I said, the best way to allow players to dabble into other formats is giving them better avenues to get into said formats. And, you know, starting with Alchemy, I do think, you know, if they want to push it as much as I feel like they have pushed it with these releases almost with every set. I do think giving players more avenues to then access these packs in addition to them playing, you know, just buying the packs in general, is another way to incentivize players to then invest into that particular format. The other thing, like I said, is, you know, this is something that I feel like they're still developing. I think they changed up the incentives with events and things like that. I think if I probably go to the standard event for Alchemy in the process of this, if I go to, where is it, Alchemy event? Yeah, so they updated the packs, which is definitely very good. But like allow me to do it for draft, do it for sealed. You know, maybe make a particular event with pre-made decks is definitely another good way where I don't have to pay any money or any gold or gems to enter. Just giving me just more avenues to just access cards is always a good thing. But if you guys have any suggestions, let me know in the comments below. I'd like to hear what your guys' thoughts are. Are you a fan of Alchemy? If they gave you more avenues to get packs or cards for Alchemy, would you play more Alchemy? Let me know in the comments below. If you like the video, hit that like button. Definitely helps out a lot. If you're new here, you want to post new videos on the channel, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Just want to give a special shout out to the channel members here on my YouTube channel. You can also become a channel member yourself down below the video, hitting that join button. It definitely helps out a lot, and I just appreciate you guys for your support.